For 311 days, nobody wanted the 25-pound orange Maine Coon in cage number 6. He was almost 4 feet long from nose to tail, with tufted lynx ears and a face that looked permanently unimpressed. And at 25 pounds, he was nearly 4 times the size of an ordinary house cat. 40, 50, 60 people walked past his cage and said the same 3 words: too big, too grumpy. And then a 58-year-old woman who had not felt safe alone in her own home for 3 years signed a $125 adoption fee. What that giant, grumpy, unwanted cat did at 4:20 in the morning 9 weeks later is the only reason she is alive to tell it. Her name was Joan Avery, and 3 years earlier, she had been a dental hygienist in Tacoma, Washington, with a car, a license, and a life she did not think twice about. Then, a driver ran a red light at 6th Avenue at 35 miles an hour, and Joan woke up in a hospital 11 days later with a head injury that had left her with epilepsy at the age of 55. She lost her license, she lost the job she had held for 22 years, and slowly, over 36 months, she lost almost everyone because seizures frighten people, and a woman who might collapse without warning is a woman most people quietly stop visiting. By the time she was 58, Joan's whole world had shrunk to a 1-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor of a building on 6th Avenue, a disability check of about $1,400 a month, and a telephone that rang mostly with appointment reminders. She had 2 or 3 seizures a month, sometimes more, and the worst part was never the seizure itself. The worst part was the silence afterward, lying on the floor of an empty apartment, not knowing how long she had been out, with no one in the world who would notice if she never got up. She had a medical alert pendant the county had given her, but it had a habit of slipping off, and twice in 2 years, she had come to on the kitchen floor with it sitting 3 feet away on the counter, useless. It was a social worker named Marcus, the one person who still checked on her, who first said it out loud. "Joan, you spend 23 hours a day alone in here. You need something alive in this apartment." Joan had laughed for the first time in weeks. "I can barely take care of myself, Marcus." He didn't argue. "Then get a cat that doesn't ask for much. Get the one nobody else wants." So on a wet Tuesday in October, with the rain coming sideways off the Sound, Joan took the number 2 bus 4 stops to the Pierce County shelter, telling herself she was only looking. If you've made it this far with Joan and Leo and still haven't subscribed, I'll be honest, that stings a little. If their story is reaching you, hit subscribe. The shelter was loud with kittens, a dozen of them tumbling in the front windows where the families gathered. But at the very back, in cage number 6, sat something else entirely: 25 pounds of orange fur, nearly 4 feet of cat folded into a cage built for animals a quarter his size, staring out at the world with green eyes and a deeply unimpressed expression. "That's Leo," the volunteer said. Maine Coon, about 5 years old. His owner was an 81-year-old man who went into assisted living back in December and couldn't take him along. Joan asked the only question that mattered: how long has he been here? The volunteer checked the card. 311 days. People come in wanting a kitten. Nobody wants a 25-pound adult cat who looks like he's judging them. He eats $100 of food a month, and his vet bills are double a normal cat's. She lowered her voice. "Honestly, most folks take one look at that face and walk right back to the kittens." Joan put one finger through the bars of cage number 6. For 311 days, Leo had watched families choose smaller, younger, friendlier-looking cats. He did not move toward most people, but he leaned his enormous head into Joan's single finger and let out a low, rumbling purr she could feel in her own chest from a foot away. Joan, who had spent 3 years learning what it felt like to be the thing people quietly walk away from, understood that face completely. "I'll take him," she said. The volunteer blinked. "He's 25 pounds. He won't fit in a normal carrier." Joan signed the $125 fee with a hand that had not signed her own name for anything that mattered in a very long time. "Then we'll figure it out," she said. The first 3 weeks were chaos on a scale Joan had not planned for. Leo did not fit in the cat carrier, so she carried all 25 pounds of him home on the number 2 bus in a laundry basket to the open stares of every passenger. He knocked a potted plant off the windowsill within the first hour. He went through a 5-pound bag of food every 12 days and drank from a mixing bowl because a normal cat dish looked like a thimble under his chin. And on the very first night, Joan woke at 2 in the morning to find all 25 pounds of him stretched along the length of her body, his chin on her shoulder, a purr running through him like a small, idling engine. For the first time in 3 years, the apartment did not feel empty, and Joan slept 8 hours straight. In the first month, she spent $90 on a cat bed he immediately ignored, $60 on a carrier he did not fit in, and another $40 on the laundry basket he claimed as his throne. But here's the thing, no one at the shelter could have told her, because no one knew it yet. About 6 weeks in, Leo started doing something strange. 2 or 3 times a week in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, he would stop whatever he was doing, walk directly to Joan, and begin pawing at her leg and meowing low and insistent, refusing to stop. The first time, she thought he was hungry. The second time, 20 minutes after he started, she had a seizure. The third time, she paid attention. She sat down on the floor, her back against the couch, and put a cushion behind her head, and 4 minutes later, the seizure came. And for the first time in 3 years, she did not hit the ground unprepared. By Christmas, Joan understood. Somehow, in a way no doctor could fully explain to her, Leo could feel her seizures coming 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes before she could. Researchers believe some animals detect the tiny changes that come before a seizure. Joan only knew that a 25-pound cat the world had thrown away had given her the one thing no specialist in 3 years had managed to give her, which was a warning. She started talking to people again because suddenly she had something worth saying. The retired man across the hall, a 70-year-old named Hank Mercer, started checking in, and Joan, who had spent 3 years with a phone that only rang for appointments, found herself with a neighbor, a routine, and a reason to answer the door. For 9 weeks straight, Leo's warnings were never once wrong. Every time he pawed and yowled, a seizure followed within 20 minutes, and every time, because of him, Joan met it sitting safely on the floor instead of falling. Then came the night of the 22nd, in the dead middle of winter, and everything Leo had been quietly doing for 9 weeks was put to a test none of them saw coming. Joan had gone to bed at 11, and her medication usually held the worst of it at bay through the night. But at 4:20 in the morning, in her sleep, with no warning she could act on, the largest seizure she had had in 3 years took hold of her in the dark.
Leo was awake. He had been awake for a while, Hank would later guess, because the pawing and the low yowling had started before anyone could have known why. When Joan did not respond, the 25-pound cat did the one thing left to him. He went to the apartment door, and he threw his entire body against it, again and again, and he yowled, a deep, carrying sound nothing in that building had ever heard from him, for what Hank estimated was close to 10 minutes without stopping. Across the hall, Hank Mercer, 70 years old and a light sleeper since his army days, finally got up, knocked on Joan's door, got no answer but the frantic cat behind it, and called 911. The paramedics were there in 8 minutes. They found Joan on her bedroom floor, and Leo planted at the door, 25 pounds of orange fur that would not move aside for anyone until they were through it and kneeling at her side. One of the medics, a woman who had worked the night shift in Tacoma for 11 years, said it plainly afterward. Another 20 or 30 minutes alone after a seizure that size, she said, and this could have been a very different call. She looked at the enormous cat watching from the doorway. That animal is the reason we got here in time. Leo, who had spent 311 days being passed over for kittens because of his size and his grumpy face, sat in the doorway of the only person who had ever chosen him and would not take his green eyes off her. For 311 days, the world had looked at Leo and seen all the wrong things. Too big, too old, too grumpy. 40, 50, 60 families had chosen a smaller, cuter, easier cat. Not one of them ever imagined that the very size that frightened them and the quiet, watchful nature they had mistaken for a scowl would one night throw itself against a door at 4 in the morning and refuse to stop until help came. Word of the giant orange cat who called for help spread down the whole block. Hank Mercer started coming to coffee 3 mornings a week. A niece Joan had not spoken to in 2 years drove the 40 miles down from Seattle the moment she heard, and Joan, who had spent 3 years certain she had nothing left to offer anyone, started volunteering 2 afternoons a week at the very Pierce County shelter where she had found him, sitting on the floor with the cats nobody wanted. The big ones, the old ones, the grumpy-faced ones the families walked right past on their way to the kittens. In a single year, she watched 9 of them go home. Today, Leo is 6, all 25 pounds of him, and he still sleeps stretched the full length of Joan's body every single night. He still rides the number 2 bus in a laundry basket. He still paws at her leg 10 or 15 minutes before a seizure. And because of it, in 2 years, Joan has not once hit the floor without warning. The county pendant sits in a drawer now. The alert system she trusts weighs 25 pounds and sleeps on her feet. She tells every visitor to that shelter the same words, every single time. The one nobody wants, she says, might just be the one who saves your life. We are so quick to decide what a life is worth. We look at the size of it, the age of it, the face it happens to wear, and the number of days no one has chosen it, and we decide the math is bad. We are so often wrong. Joan Avery did not rescue a 25-pound cat from cage number 6. She gave him a warm bed, a name, and 9 weeks of being wanted. And in return, at 4:20 in the morning, he gave her back her life. Was it instinct that threw Leo against that door? Or did a cat nobody wanted for 311 days simply refuse to lose the one person who ever chose him? Tell me in the comments.